What's your most insane meeting the parents story? He brought his mother on our first date. Dated a girl just for a bit, no plans at all to meet her parents at this point. We had just finished doing the deed for the first time when she got a call from her mum. Apparently, she'd had a little bit too much to drink and needed a sober ride home. This girl asked if I minded, and I didn't, so we headed to the bar to get them. They were kind enough to be outside waiting for us when we got there. The parents were both leaning back on a railing above some concrete steps leading to an outside basement entrance. This girl waves at them and they wave back. Her dad lost his balance and went backwards over the railing. Her mum looked over and just started wailing. Made her stay in the car and call 911 while I went to see what happened. He had landed just right on the corner of one of the stairs and split his skull wide open, dead before I ever said a word to him. That relationship didn't last very long. Oh, I have a good one. My husband and I are older, like in our 40s, and have been dating about a year before I met his parents for the first time. They live on the other side of the country and flew out to visit him. His ex-girlfriend found out and showed up at the restaurant, sat down and dominated the conversation with all of the memories she had with the parents and my husband. It was awkward as heck. They can't stand her but are polite people, and this chick is such a hot mess. I was invited to a former boyfriend's house for dinner to meet his parents. When I got there, his father wasn't home yet from work, so we decided to go for a walk. Boyfriend's mother told us to be back at the house by 5, so we were playfully racing each other back so as to make it in time. I got to the door a few paces ahead of him, opened the door and found myself face to face with his dad, who was standing completely undressed in front of the door. I turned around and hid around the corner, and the father kind of yelped and ran down the hall, and we were both mortified. Turns out he came home and was getting ready to shower when the phone rang, so he answered it in the buck since he hadn't expected us back yet. In short, I saw his dad au naturel before I even saw him. Well, at least you could try and get a gauge on the family genes and what you might have to work with on your boyfriend later, so it's not all bad, right? I met my ex's mum when I was 15. They were a highly Catholic family and he wasn't allowed to date, so I would go over after school until it was about time for them to get home. So we were making out and my shirt and bra come off, which was pretty escalated for us. Then we heard a car door slam, he grabs my shirt and bra, hands them to me and tells me to go hide in his closet. So I do, shirtless. His mum and him talk for what seems like forever just outside the door. She tells him she's going to go take a nap, so to be quiet. After she went into her room, he came and got me. Right as I'm trying to get my bra on, she steps out of her room and sees me. We broke up soon afterwards. In short, got caught by a super Catholic mum shirtless in her son's closet. Not so much of a story, but just before I met his mum, my ex said to me, "My mom is like a shark. She can smell fear, so just don't be scared." Oh, okay. My ex-mum surprised him with a visit while we were mid-whoopee. My clothes somehow ended up all over the apartment, so I had to come out and greet her, wearing nothing but his shirt and pretending it was a dress. She knew. Did I mention she was one of my bosses? Met the father at the boyfriend's hockey game. He was sweet and bought me a hot chocolate and himself a coffee. About 5 minutes later, he gets booted from the arena for arguing with a ref and throwing his coffee at said referee's face. His mum asked us if we were, quote, dipping winkies, please bear in mind that I'm a female, and said if he ever needed protection for us to tell her we're hungry for Hardee's, and she'd know what we meant and wouldn't have to explain further, and that she would either give us money or go out and buy us protection. I was 14 at the time. I found out years later that she became pregnant and had a termination at 13, and she didn't want us to have to make that decision, so she was really just trying to be helpful. But it was a little much for the very first time meeting her. Sitting at dinner with the girlfriend and her parents, I'd just met them 10 minutes earlier, having casual conversations when I snorted. I tried to play it cool, but we all knew what happened. The worst part was about 30 seconds after the sneeze, after everyone had moved on, when the smell crept in. Meeting my now fiancé's mum for the first time, a few months after we'd started dating. She makes a comment about us making babies, half jokingly, and I nervously reply, It's okay, we're enjoying practicing for now. My ex-boyfriend wanted me to meet his parents, and he told me they wanted to meet me too. We decided to drive up to their place in the Bay Area. We lived in Orange County at the time. We did this for Thanksgiving. I'm white, and he and thus his parents are Chinese. I normally wouldn't mention this, but apparently my whiteness made them not approve of me, and therefore not actually want to meet me. I didn't know they didn't want to meet me, otherwise I wouldn't have driven 6 hours and showed up at their house. When we knocked on their door, his mother answered, looked at me and said in Cantonese, "I told you not to bring the white girl here." More was said in Cantonese and I understood none of it. To save money, his parents didn't have the boiler on, nor did they have heat in the house. Not having a boiler meant not having hot water and therefore not having showers. To remedy this, they had a membership at 24-Hour Fitness, where they went every night to have a shower. They insisted that we go to the 24-Hour Fitness for a shower, literally 15 minutes after showing up at their house. 24-Hour Fitness has communal showering. I'm absolutely terrified of communal showering. I had to get undressed with my boyfriend's mother 15 minutes after meeting her. At that point, she'd never spoken a word to me in English. The first actual communication she showed to me was to thrust a hairdryer in my hands. Anyway, the next few days were excruciatingly uncomfortable. Next to nothing was said in English at all, and I felt like everyone hated me. I spent several days just being as quiet, submissive, and polite as possible. I was sent to his mother's garden to pull weeds in the sun for a few hours, and after that, she apparently began liking me. Later in the week, she decided I needed a checkup at the doctor. For what reason, I don't know. Turns out she scheduled me for an exam of my lady parts conducted by a man who I don't know, a man who spoke in really broken English. I explained to her that I was not comfortable with any of this. It was horrible and embarrassing. In short, I got undressed with my boyfriend's mum 15 minutes after meeting her. She hated me, and later she scheduled me for a fricking pelvic exam and didn't bother explaining to me what was happening until we were there. And no, I didn't have that exam. I noped right out of there. Ouch. Yeah, I don't care how great that partner is. I think if that's happened, it's breakup time, right? There'd have to be a bombshell supermodel millionaire to make family meetings like that worthwhile. I met his mum and said, "Oh, this must be your grandmother."
See, this is why we always guess one generation down. Then it's either flattering or correct.
Her parents had an RV and were on vacation when we met. When they returned home, we were doing the deed in the shower. Her mum didn't expect anyone to be at the house with her and just walked in. We had done it everywhere in the house, and she was expecting them home the next day. Her dad introduced me to his 357 and told me to get the F out of his house. So I left. Brit here. Do American fathers actually shoot their daughters' boyfriends, or is it more of a statement? It's a stereotype, sometimes true and oftentimes not. My worst meet the parents situation was several years ago. I walked into his house and noticed framed photos on the wall. All of them were stills from when they were on the show Wife Swap. That in and of itself was no big deal until I saw the episode, but then father approached me and I stuck out my hand to shake, and he just looks me up and down, turns to his son and says, "Is she a subscriber to The Way?" And later on we were all having dinner, and his sister is telling the parents how she heard I was a working girl and they attempted to evangelize me. I went to pick her up and her mother was a parole officer. She photocopied my driver's license and made me wait around while she phoned somebody at the station to check my record. I was 16 and it was the winter formal. Her dad waved from across the room and I happened to be walking towards him and landed the most awkward high five of my life. I dated a Korean guy for a month or so in high school. I went to his house after school one day and encountered his dad on the sidewalk before we made it there. He looks at me, looks at his son, and begins pointing at me and yelling at him in Korean. I had to awkwardly stand there for about 5 minutes of them going back and forth before we parted ways and I just went home. Turns out he didn't want him dating a non-Korean. That's actually pretty common occurrence for the people who recently migrated from Korea. The grandparents will pretty much ignore their grandchildren if something like that happens. Dating a Japanese person is the worst, though. Current boyfriend has extremely Christian and somewhat square parents. They're very sweet, albeit sheltered. So he and I have a running joke that he uses me for nothing more than as a splooge bucket. So he texts and tells me he's at his parents' house. Unbeknownst to me, he hands his iPhone to his mum to look up a brownie recipe, and at that exact moment, I text him back, "Tell your parents your splooge bucket says hello," which of course popped up. She purportedly shrieked, and he now has a cracked screen. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I knocked up my girlfriend. She is Vietnamese. Talking to her mum on the phone, she somehow let it slip that she was pregnant. We had to cancel all plans immediately, drive over an hour to where they are, near the older brother's house, and discuss this with them. So picture the scene. Me, a giant white guy, and them, a tiny Asian family. The scene is a kitchen table with her mum, dad, sister, brother-in-law, and the girlfriend and I. There was about an hour of unbelievably awkward discussion and arguments in Vietnamese with me just sitting there. Everything turned out alright as our boy is 2 months old, today actually, and her parents and family love me. It was like Meet the Fockers, mixed with Knocked Up and Apocalypse Now. I met my wife online back in 1995 when I was 23 and she was a 19-year-old college student. She lived 9 hours away and I had no car, so when it was my turn to visit her, I got a cheap plane ticket. She came to pick me up at the airport around midnight, but parked her car in the wrong place. We returned to her spot to find that the car had been towed away. We took a cab to the impoundment lot and discovered that they wouldn't release the car to us because her parents owned the car. My poor long-distance girlfriend had to call her parents around 1 a.m. and ask them to drive to the impound lot, which was an hour away from their house, to get her car out so the two of us could drive back to her apartment for illicit unmarried relations. When her parents arrived, I introduced myself to her dad, shook his hand, and said, "I'm sorry we couldn't have met under better circumstances," and he just grunted at me. "Well, author, you married them in the end. I figure he might have got over it in the 16 years between the incident and you writing that story in 2011. If he still bears a grudge now in 2024, then I really admire your commitment to her. At least now your relations are post-marital." I met my wife, then girlfriend's parents, once or twice before Christmas. However, I didn't really get the chance to meet the rest of her family, or really them for that matter. So when my girlfriend asked me to come over for the holidays, I thought it would be fun. Okay, something quick you have to know. My family doesn't celebrate holidays. I mean, we used to, but after a while, we just got lazy. So while we might go somewhere nice to eat on Christmas, we don't exchange gifts. And for some idiot reason, I didn't consider buying her family anything until I was an hour away from her house. Crap. So I quickly get some gifts from a shop that is surprisingly open. However, this place was just a step above a gas station. The mum got an ugly Christmas pillow and the dad got a collection of shot glasses. I gift wrap in the car and drive the rest of the way, not even realizing I forgot to get something for her brother. So I get there, put the gifts under the tree, I notice 8 gifts for me, and I try to play it cool. I seem to be making a good impression, and by the nighttime, I think I'm golden. I go to sleep with dreams of sugar plums and fairies. And frick, I'm sick. Abort. I wake up on Christmas morning projectile vomiting, all over this family quilt thing that they've put over me, and I run to the bathroom, chucking up all along the way. Lucky for me, no one woke up. I do my best to clean everything and go to bed for another hour. I wake up to Santa going round 2 to my stomach. I sit up and chuck up again. My girlfriend runs in, sees me and helps clean me up. I make her swear she won't tell anyone. I get up, take a shower, and by the time I'm out, Christmas breakfast is beginning. I make it through the breakfast, but as we sit down at the tree to open presents, I lose it again. I have never chucked up that sloppily in my entire life. I was like a fricking sprinkler during summer. Her mum screamed and jumped back, only to hit the couch wrong and topple over it. I run for the bathroom and there I am for 15 minutes. When I get back, I'm ashamed. The family cleaned up my chuck and tell me it's okay and that I should lay down. So I do. Christmas dinner is around the time I wake up. I'm sweating and shivering, and I barely remember I'm supposed to meet my girlfriend's grandparents tonight. They'd driven 5 hours to meet me. I stand up, get dizzy, and somehow end up on the floor again, where I decided to close my eyes for a few more minutes. And I crap myself. I'm not kidding. 1 minute I'm sort of zoning, and the next I feel this intense stomach cramp. Then I just do it. I crap myself, I lay there in my own number 2 for a minute as I hear the family outside laughing and spreading the cheer. They are loving the holidays and the togetherness, and I, on the other hand, am hating everything about this crappy situation. I text my girlfriend because that's all I can do. I say, "I had an accident, come in here." She comes and asks where the puke is, and I just close my eyes, take a breath, and mutter, "I crapped my pants." So my girlfriend helps me out of my pants and gets me some wipes, and I'm so freaking sick that I'm not even wiping correctly. And the entire time, my girlfriend is in and out of the room, throwing stuff away and grabbing more stuff. I hear her grandparents and parents talking about what's going on. At one point, I hear a knock on the door and it's her mum. She wants to check on me and the girlfriend screams, "Do not come in," which of course is the reason she comes in. So my girlfriend and her mother are in the room with a very sick me, trying their best to ignore the smell. Then I hear the fire alarm. The mum had forgotten to take something out of the oven because she was trying to help me. The good news is nothing was burned, but it's fun to add to the story. By the time the Christmas ham is being served, I'm back in bed, muttering my apologies. The next morning I wake up, and this is the worst part, I wake up feeling okay. So I thank everyone for the lovely time, say I have a work emergency, and bolt. Just freaking bolt. God, I hate Christmas. Wow, that sounds like a crap Christmas, pun intended. And again, you stuck around with this person after the incident, so one hopes that things with the in-laws are better now. I mean, they seemed very sweet and understanding. I'm sure it's come up many, many times since then, though. I was dating this girl for about 3 months and got her pregnant. We decided it was best if we just got married, as I was 27 and she was 20. I drove to my parents' house to tell them, and at the same time she went to her parents' house to tell them. I offered to go with her, but she said, "You don't know my dad," which was true because while she had met my parents, I'd never met hers. Sitting at my parents' house listening to them tell me how I was throwing my life away, the phone rings. It was my girlfriend. She said I needed to go over to her parents' house because they wanted to meet me. I showed up at their house and was escorted to the living room where I was asked to sit in a chair in the middle of the room. Her family sat in a semicircle around me and proceeded to grill me for 2 hours. What were you thinking? You're 7 years older than her. Are you some kind of pervert? How do you plan on supporting our daughter and grandchild? On and on. That was 20 years ago. I'm posting this from my in-laws' house, sitting next to my 19-year-old daughter. I'm still very much in love with my wife, and her family still hates me and sees me as the dirty old man that took their daughter away from them. I had to drive her to her mother, who was giving birth in hospital. That was when I first met her parents. Bonus points, she named the child the same name as me. The doctor said, "It's a boy," and her mum said, "I'll call him John." She then turns to her daughter. "Who's this with you?" Mom, meet John." In hindsight, I could have pretended I was her child that had traveled back from the future to witness his own birth. Frick, that would have been weird. Oh, I have a good one. It's not a relationship type meet the parents, but it is the worst experience I've had with someone's parents outside of my dysfunctional family. My friend is the son of one of the physics professors at my university, so when I got introduced to my future instructor, because I decided to major in physics, I was forced to make some small talk. He also prepared a lovely dinner for us too. I had no clue he had 3 other children in the family, so he started talking about them. We talked a lot about how his oldest was in Germany and his second oldest skipped a grade. That was my friend. I started spacing out and instead focused on the food and how good it was. At this time, he mentioned that his youngest daughter was at Girl Guides. And right when he said that, I let out the most satisfying to signify that I was really enjoying his food. I then clued back into the conversation and said, "Girl Guides, yeah, I like them," which was a mistake when I quickly realized what I'd just said after I could see my friend holding back laughter, but I just sat there and ate my food in silence. He gave me this really weird look, and I don't think he's looked at me the same since, even after being my instructor for 6 upper-level physics classes. We never spoke of it again, but my friend likes to bring it up every so often. In short, I meet my future physics professor over dinner, and his first impression of me is that I'm some creep who really enjoys Girl Guides. She only had her mother, and her father passed away when she was young. I go to her house and wait for her to get home and meet her mum. She has a bottle of IDOW's on the table. Her mum was pleasant and not too drunk at the time, and she offers me a drink. I normally don't drink the hard stuff, but I decided to be polite and take it. Her mother gets a phone call, and apparently my new girlfriend is going to be about 2 hours late. The mother sits down next to me on the couch and tells me. Then the unthinkable happens. Her mum, not very attractive by the way, puts her hand on my upper thigh. She says we have 2 hours if I'm interested, and smiles. Now at the time I'm only 18, but I had enough common sense to get the frick out real quick. I met up with my girlfriend later on that night, and I don't even bring up what happened, because what good could it do, right? 2 days later, my girlfriend shows up at my house and is wide-eyed. Her breath is labored. She ran to my house. She tells me that one of her best friends just told her that he slept with her mum. I ask when that happened, and she said 2 nights ago. So I made the right choice. When I was 15, I met my then-girlfriend's father as he drove us home from a school dance. I had my arm around her. He asked if my arm was broken. I replied that it was not. He asked me if I wanted it to stay that way, so I removed my arm from around my girlfriend. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.